All right, guys. Still early, so we don't have confirmation on all of the injuries, but Huff definitely has his wrist, but we have no update yet on that. We'll get that later today. Jake Moody does have a high ankle sprain. Like the timeout and stuff. No update yet on that. Players from last week who missed the game. Flanagan fouls, calf unlikely for this week. Jacob Cowing with his shoulder still day-to-day. Chris Conley with his oblique is still day-to-day. And Ricky Purcell is going to continue rehabbing this week. Go ahead, guys.
Did Hufanga have an X-ray at the stadium yesterday at all?
I don't know if he had an X-ray or not. I don't remember.
Okay.
Kyle, with the kicker situation. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, as far as Christian McCaffrey, is the plan this week to ramp up a little bit more than he did last week?
His plan is to continue his rehab, and every day you try to push the rehab more and more each day. So,
Kyle, with the kicker situation, have you guys singled out somebody, or do you expect like a competition tryout thing this week?
Yeah, I think we got 4 guys coming in later today.
Can you reveal who those are?
I don't know. I don't have their names. No, that's what the guys are working on now. Just finishing this game and getting started on all the Seattle stuff on the short week. So I know those guys are scrambling in. I think they got 4 guys coming, but I didn't get their names.
Kyle, just to clarify, on Ricky Pearsall, you say he's going to continue his rehab. That means you won't be opening the window on the short week?
No, just because we're not going to practice or anything. So,
yeah, got it.
Kyle, after the game, Nick Bosa said it was a blessing that you guys had the quick turnaround after that game. How, as a coaching staff, do you handle it? How much time do you spend on kind of the debrief of what happened yesterday as opposed to just quickly turning the page and focusing on Seattle?
We do it and we already did it as a coaching staff, last night and early this morning, but there's no time to spend on that now, especially when our players come in. So position coaches can kind of get it on the side with a couple of things that they need to clarify and go over that pertains to this week. But anytime in these short weeks, you get right to the next game as fast as possible.
And how do you, as a head coach, kind of look back on what happened yesterday, and just how's your mindset when it comes to dealing with that loss and trying to put it behind you and figuring out ways to not allow that to happen again?
Same way I do it always. I just don't get to go over with the whole team as long on a whole Monday. So my process of that started all last night. I do all that stuff, at home when I'm done. When I get home, and then I come in the morning and clarify with all the coaches real early and put that to bed with them, and then get right to Seattle.
Kyle, on the last pass that Brock attempted, what was the coaching point on that one in terms of, I guess, where Mason, which guy he should have picked up, and did one of the interior linemen pick up the wrong guy?
No, they had a blitz. We had 2 guys. When 2 guys blitz the back, that means you're hot, and we just got to get rid of the ball quicker.
Kyle, this may fall under you don't have time, but Brock talked yesterday about talking to Jordan Mason about obviously the standard of excellence, but not putting it all on him for the loss. As a coach, do you have time to talk to him about that and how you balance that?
Yeah, I mentioned it after the game that's not all on JP. We all had our part. We had 4 possessions in the second half, and we had 3 turnovers and 1 turnover on down. So to make it come down to the last turnover is, the easier way out, but that's not the case. All these plays affect the whole game, and we didn't score in the second half, and the 4 times we got the ball, it's basically 4 turnovers when you turn it over on down. So his was just one part of that.
Kyle, I think it was last week everyone was saying how great Brock scrambling was and how effective it can be. I guess, now obviously after a loss, it's like, well, what about his family? I don't know. Is there a fine line sometimes of trying to exhaust the play and making something happen, and then sometimes maybe just taking a check down or throwing it away?
Yeah, always. I mean, that's why you try to cover that too when those things happen, good or bad. I mean, last week I thought it really helped out, and he made a number of plays with it. But I think I also said last week there was a couple that it hurt us on, and I'd say the same thing happened yesterday. There's always some good and bad for both of those things. You hope the good outweighs the bad, which it has. But there was a couple, in particular that sack on the 2nd and 14 that were tough to overcome.
Coach, last night, George Kittle spoke about the fact that with this team compared to years past, you guys just haven't been able to kind of figure out how to get these like gritty or gross wins, he called them. When you're watching in practice or when you're watching from the sideline in the games, what do you think is missing with this team to be able to kind of close out these games compared to other seasons?
I just think that's kind of a generic answer for someone trying to answer your guys' questions. It comes down to specifics, so it's hard to give a generic answer. But, in these two games these two division games that we believe we should have won with the lead we had in the second half, I thought this one was worse than the Rams one in terms of we got sloppier in terms of our turnovers and things like that, not scoring in the second half. When you have a lead on people, you need to finish them. And the way you finish people is you continue to score. And if you aren't doing that, you can't turn it over, and you got to stop people at the end. And, we had a couple chances there at the end, especially on that 4th down. Thought Kyler made a hell of a play. But those are the plays you got to stop to win these, especially when it's tight like that.
Kyle, Nick said that Cardinals started doing something a little differently with their zone read to get Connor. That was a reason Connor started to get loose at the end. And he said there wasn't a proper adjustment on the defensive side, and he said that has kind of been a theme in each loss this season. Is that a fair assessment?
I mean, I don't know the quote exactly, but the way you just said it, no, I wouldn't think so. I mean, I know this long one, the touchdown run, we got, when you're in an 8-man front and you miss the back, you're one guy short, and your middle third player needs to make the tackle, and he got buried in, it's going to be a big gain, but not a touchdown gain, and he got buried in it too. So when you have an 8-man front and no one accounts for the quarterback, it's not necessarily adjustment, it's a mistake. You can always go to two-shelf defenses to have a guy in that lane, which definitely helps for those things. Just makes it harder for the downhill runs to the running back. So there's always give and take with that. But that's the challenge of when you play a system where the quarterback can pull it. You can't fall asleep on any play the whole game because you never know when he's going to pull it. And if you don't have a guy account for it and they have the type of speed that quarterback has, that's what happens. And they got us about 2 times in the game on it. That one will be in the worst one. And then another one in the 4th quarter that hurt us.
Kyle, a couple of people have talked about, playing complementary football and the need to get to that. I'm curious, is that something you can address like during the week, or is that just more of an abstract term of when all 3 phases play well, that's what you say after the fact? Is that something, is complementary football something you talk about and can teach?
I mean, all these things have to do with just the detail of each play, and then you add it up over 70 plays, and how is that going on each side of the ball, and then how's it going on special teams. So complementary football is something I talk about a lot, so that's probably why you hear it from those guys. But it's not something that you teach complementary football. You teach playing each play the best that you can. And when the offense is doing it and the defense is doing it and the teams are doing it, that's when you get some very easy victories. And, it's usually out of hand in the 4th quarter. When one side of the ball is hot but the other side's not, that usually keeps guys in the game. And you can't really put people away until you play more complementary football, which is another way of saying all 3 phases are playing at the top of their game at the same time, not taking turns doing it throughout a game.
We'll take 2 more.
How long are you guys expecting to be without Gross Matos?
I think he got his surgery Friday, and they told me anywhere like 4 to 8 weeks is their estimate on it. And so it's, a pretty big estimate, but 4 on the short side, 8 on the long.
Can you tell us what what happened, what the surgery was?
Yeah, it was the same. It was the same injury that he had in the last preseason game. We thought giving it a long rest would be able to help it. It did for a little bit, but then the more he started playing, it started aggravating it again, and just became too painful. So had to make the choice to get surgery, and I think it was a good decision.
Take one more. Or no more.
Kyle, you guys have been in arguably worse situations, I guess 3-5 in 2021. And a lot of guys are still, from that team on this team. Is that in any way relevant, or does it help to have that history of knowing what can still be accomplished?
No, I don't think it pertains to anything. I think everybody goes off their life experiences, and we have, so people who have been here can always resort to that and just know how things work. I've been through a number of them in my whole coaching career, not just here. So you always know going through this that you can never count yourself out until you're actually eliminated from something. I've seen teams start 0-4 and get there before. So there's lots of things that go into it, but I think every year is different, and we gotta write our own story this year, and has nothing to do with other years.